right. Sounds right. Sounds right. Sounds right. Sounds right. Sounds right. Sounds
Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Devonte Colonel, and I know we've been away for a little over a week now, but that's for good reason because we are officially launching into our 30 days of live streaming. So, if you know what that means at all, this is a challenge we're taking on where for the full month of June, we're going to be live streaming for 30 days in a row. That means no days off, not a Sunday, not a Saturday, nothing. So, I'm going to be having on lots of guests, tons of new people. We're also going to see some old faces that we've seen within this first year of the Inspired Challenge podcast show. And as an honor to that, that means that we're going to be having some panels, much more panels. We've only had about two panels within the first year. And one of those panels, there were some issues. So I'm excited to be able to jump into that. And I'm really hoping that we can get some people that want to watch along on a regular basis within the course of this 30 days. So be sure to like and share and subscribe these videos out to people. Have them join on. We're also going to be getting live on Twitch. I'm working on setting that up. So we're still going to be doing a lot of building the plane as we're flying it. You guys, I want to go ahead and jump into today's topic. As you can see, I have my lovely wife, one Shalimar Del Gato Perez, and we are going to be covering the story of how we got together through dating apps. Shally, what you thinking?
Well, yeah, we just want to
Oh,
share. Oh, am I
Go
good?
ahead. Oh, no, wrong button. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm good now.
Yeah, you're good.
No, we're just ready. I'm just ready to share a story. So let's get to it.
All right, you guys. So we're going to have this broken up into a couple of different phases. Phase one is going to be where we were at in our lives that we decided to go ahead and even entertain the idea of dating apps. So I'll go ahead and I'll start off with mines. That way, Shelly can collect her thoughts and be able to deliver it to you guys. So when it comes to where I was at in life at that point, I was in a place where I was doing pretty well from a relationship that I had in the past. I had figured out what I was doing with myself in terms of my mental health, my physical health. I was putting myself around plenty of new friends, new faces, getting deeper into my church. And I was also still learning how to properly go about carrying myself and the different signs that are at play when it comes to being able to determine if somebody has interest in you, basically. And at that time, I'm going to tell you guys, my aim was way off as far as I could see it in other people and their interactions. But I was also like very naive to it myself, both for better and for worse. There were some people that I could not tell their interest that I later found out there was. And then there were some people that I thought there were some signs and there absolutely were not. And so I was coming off of the heels of actually a couple of cases that I thought there was interest and accepting like, oh man, this is just not the thing. Okay, well, I guess I'll just start kind of trying my thing with the dating apps again. And it was there was a friend that I had from my dance classes I went to, and he told me something one day. He said, and I'm open to the idea of dating someone, but I'm not like super looking to find it. And he said, I just get on the dating apps, I do my swipes that they give me for the day, and then I turn it off. And I just do it in the same way that I brush my teeth. I don't do it for like this major reason. I'm not looking for the love of my life right now. I'm just doing the reps so to be able to say that I put in my effort for that day. And he told me that, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. You put no stock into it. You're not sitting here like trying to find somebody in 2 to 6 months. You just do it just to see what comes up. And so I took that mentality and I was like, okay, so that's what I'll do. So that's how I got to deciding to get on dating apps. How about you, Sally? So, where were you at in your life to where you decided it was time for you to go ahead and get into the dating apps?
Okay, so a little bit about my dating background. Before I met Devante, I only dated one person in my life. I think we started dating when I was 16 and we dated like for 5 years. After that, there was like this huge gap that I didn't date. Not so much because I didn't want to. Every time there was like an interest with another guy, something happened. Like we will talk for a little bit, but then it will just like dissipate. They will move. They will get back with their exes. If something always happened that I never fully, dated somebody. Well, I'm a Christian, so I was just praying on it after being in a relationship where we're pretty much on equal yoke. For me, it was very important that the person I dated, we had like same shared values, and I didn't want to compromise any of the things that were important to me. So I think I got a book. Can't remember the name. I think it was like Savoring Single because I was trying to put into perspective that being single is not a bad thing. It allows me to focus on myself, focus on God, and whenever the timing is right, I was just trusting that God was gonna bring this person into my life. So all my life I've lived in Puerto Rico. I moved here to Florida around 2020. I was like, this is it. I'm gonna meet new people. Let's see what happens. So I started a new job. I started a new church, and still nothing. Like I was meeting people, but not anybody that I wanted to date. Like not the right person. And I was okay. I'm still praying about it. I'm trying to be you know, not getting frustrated. And then I started to just write Bible verses. Let me just write Bible verses and pray over, my future husband and, what I want in a person. And then, I think it was already like 2 years of me being here in Florida that I started, talking about this, with my friends. And I have a friend that she was like, oh, maybe you should try, dating app because I was able to meet this great guy in the dating app. And I was like, okay, I can consider it. I've never been on a dating app before. And yeah, that could be something that I can consider, especially because of my type of job. I feel like I was working a lot of my time, so I didn't also have a lot of time to be meeting people outside, maybe work and church. So I was okay. So it was like in the back of my head, but I didn't truly act on it. It wasn't maybe I don't know how much time passed since that first idea. I was working. I'm a medical doctor, so I was working in the hospital, and I was on call in labor and delivery, and we didn't have like a lot of patients, so I was just there with my co-resident, and we just started to talk about our dating life, and she was just telling me how she met this person in this dating app, and she was like, you should give it a try, and I was like, you're the second person that tells me about this app, and it was the same app. It was the Bumble app. And she was like, yeah, this is a good app. You should give it a try. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So shout out to David, Divya. Thanks to you guys. It was a good next step. And that's how I allow myself then to put myself out there since, I think that being passive is not always, like a good thing. I think that I was passive for a long time. I think that the gap was like 6 years without me actually dating somebody. So I was like, let me just take a more proactive role and just put myself out there and see, what happens. And that's what I did.
Yeah, that's I love what you said about like you were not that proactive. Like you were doing all the things that I think a lot of church girls do, which is like praying about it and putting verses on and like meeting people at church, but it was all very like kind of like waiting, seeing what happens versus you decided, all right, I'm going to actually put in some type of move forward to seek it out more. For you, Shally, before we move on to the next section here, what do you think is the difference between a girl being proactive in her dating life versus her being the person that is like seeking someone, like pursuing? What's the difference between that? Because I think a lot of Christian girls can get that kind of confused together.
You're saying between being proactive or being comparing it to persuading? Is what you said?
Yeah, maybe comparing it to pursuing or like trying too hard or stepping out of that role, that feminine role of being the person that is open to an opportunity. What's the difference between being proactive and stepping out of that feminine role or pursuing a guy?
Okay, so if I'm understanding the question correctly, I would say that one of the differences is just being realistic. Like, I've been in the same environment for 2 years, in the same church. Yeah, some people come in and I'm meeting, maybe an X amount of people. But it's pretty much stable. The same thing with my job. Yeah, some people might come, every year, but it's pretty much stable. So, it's like you cannot expect different results doing the same thing. And I was like, what are my goals in life? Like I know I want to get married. I know I want to have a family. So I thought, then what are my options here? I can just keep doing the same thing or have a more proactive role and try different things. So that's in regards of the role of being proactive, just being realistic, seeing, your situation, and then, just go from there. In comparing to being persuasive, is that how you say it?
Per being the like pursuer is what I would say.
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything wrong to persuade something that interests you. So I don't think there's nothing wrong. Let's say if
Pursue.
the girl has interest in a guy, I don't think there's nothing wrong with she, taking the lead, maybe showing some interest or maybe being straightforward. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that being in a stage that I was like single for 6 years, I just feel like we cannot let that consume us and make it like the thing that occupies most of our brain, like, oh, I need to talk to all this amount of guys, or I need to talk, to this person that I like every single day, and just like make it the center of your life. Like, oh, I have to date. Like, why am I still single? I think that would be like the difference, that I wouldn't put it like a priority. Like, oh, I just need to date, and why am I, still single? Or, I have this dateline that I have to be dating by this time. So I don't know if that can happen in that persuasive role, because you just have it in the top of your mind. So yeah, so I think those will be like my thoughts.
Okay. So now let's go ahead and we can get into the aspect of what our experiences were like and how we actually made preparations with the dating app, what our mentality was, setting up our profiles, how we did it, and then what it was like as we were actually searching for each other or somebody and eventually landing on each other. So for me, I knew. Oh, sorry, guys. I didn't mean to do that. So for myself, I knew that I had been in a relationship, long-term relationship, for many years. And the biggest reason that it fell apart was that I was a person that when I stepped into it, I was like, I'm going to be the person that, based off of my morality, what I think is good and bad, how developed I think I am, based off of how mature I think I am, I'm going to trust that. And I knew that I didn't want to make me and the other person and what we believed was our own maturity to be the centerfold. I wanted the centerfold of the relationship to be God, because regardless of where I err and regardless of where she errs, we can look at what scripture says and say, hey, I'm out of line here, or hey, you're out of line and here's something that says it is, and we could kind of just come back around that. So I had that in mind, and I said, normally I wouldn't set my profile so specific, but I'm not just going to put, oh, I love to do, whatever activity, how many family members I have, something quirky. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to present to the people exactly who I am, exactly what takes up the most of my time, exactly how I want my relationship to look like and what I want it to run like, and let them know, like, this is what my life is and this is what you're stepping into. Because I also knew that I wanted someone to come into my world and to add to it and to be able to step into that. I had something set up that I'm like, okay, when somebody comes in, it's not like it's just two bored people to come together. This is a man that has a life that's an exciting life, and this is a woman who is excited to be with this man and excited to come into his world. So I put everything from what my best hobbies were, and that included at the time dance class, my service with my church, and I hyper indexed on the fact that I am a believer that was baptized on a certain day, and I'm looking for a Christian relationship, and I am wanting to have someone that family is important to them and that is willing to grow in their faith with me. And that was a huge non-negotiable for me that I made clear in the profile. Um, and so this was basically the bio. I also had stuff about me being an electrician. I had stuff about me going to school in electrical work. And I think I ended it just by inviting whoever to say, or inviting them by saying, like, if you are a person who's interested in God and interested in a guy that is looking for a relationship based around that, then hit me up. This was great for me because this filtered out all of what I think was the women who would not have been interested in that God conversation. And then when it came to the actual filters that I had on, my filters were set. I had a very specific range. My filter was anything from about 20 to 28. It was at the time. And at the time I was 25, 26. I think I was
I
26.
think, yeah, 26.
Yeah. So I had an 8-year range in that because I also knew that just going up in more years and whatnot, marriage for women becomes something that is way more important to them the older that they get. Also, so is starting a family. And at 28, that was still enough time for us to have to be able to date for a little bit, to be able to see what were some goods and bads, and then to decide in a decent enough time frame, hey, is this someone that I want to continue forward with in order to build a life? So I had that filter on, and in my filter, they also allow you to like pick if you want someone that has certain interests, and someone you can also pick if a person is, what is it? If they're of a certain religion. So for me, I just put that I want someone spiritual because I felt like I could work with someone who was a believer of God, but maybe not too sure, and that by me being a good leader, I could, regardless of their uncertainty, I could take their hand and I could guide them in going deeper into their faith. And so I started doing my swipes, and that's where my part cuts off.
Okay, so in regards of how I approach using the dating app, I have no idea what I was doing. So I just started with guidance in regards of which one to use. Since both of my friends use the Bumble app, that's the only one I use. I was only able to handle one app at a time. So I focus on that one. In regards on how I set up my profile, again, I don't think I put a lot of thought in it. I just truly want them to know that I was a Christian. For me, that was so important because, again, coming from an unequal joke relationship, I needed to make sure we were in the same page in that regard.
And I will say, most girls don't put like a lot of thought into their apps as well. So,
Yeah, so in my bio, I can't remember exactly what I put.
but sorry to cut
Oh,
in
that's
again.
okay.
But to be fair, a lot of guys also don't know what to put in their dating apps and bios. So, to be fair.
Yeah, it's like if I feel like if I thought a lot about it, I was just gonna be overthinking, and maybe I just would have not done it. So I was just I'm taking it lightly, almost in the same approach as you, not making like a big deal, just trying something out. So in regards of my bio, I can't remember exactly what I put, but I know that I put something regarding God there. In regards of pictures, I just chose pictures that what is big.
The fact that you put God in, but we'll cover why we ended up selecting. Right now, we're just covering you setting it up. Continue.
Yeah, so the pictures, I was like, okay, I like these pictures. I think I look nice. I like my curls in this picture. So yeah, so I just trying to answer the basic question they asked there about your interests, about hobbies, and I was like, okay, this looks nice. So when I opened the app, initially I was just doing also like the free version because again I was not that invested in it. But then when I started, receiving all these notification that, oh, somebody like your profile or somebody swap, I can't remember what exactly the notification said. It would tell you that you got the notification that somebody, like your profile, but it didn't tell you who. And I'm just too curious. So I actually made the upgrade. And since I was just starting, it was like half, like a 50% off. And I was like, okay, it's not too bad. I think it was like $15 for an upgrade. And I was like, I'm just going to try it out for this month and see how it goes. So yeah, so I think that in the first day of me opening the app, I actually got a match, and I started talking with this guy. And in regards of the filters, I think you just turned 27 because I turned 29 that first month of us dating. So you were not 26, you were 27. Yeah,
Maybe.
because I was 20.
Sure.
So in regards of my filters, I did put that the person needed to be Christian. Initially, I had like a height. I can't remember if it was like I'm 5'7". I can't remember if I put 5'8" or if I just started with 5'7". And then in the age, the same thing. I also was looking from my age or above as well. Initially, those were my settings. You have a comment, Devonte?
It's just funny to because depending on the height, if she put 5'8", I was definitely cut off from that. And based on the age filter, I was also cut off from that. But you can continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, so based on my first filters, the Vante would have not made the cut. So when I started talking with this guy that it almost looked like he met all of the boxes. Like he had the height, he had, the profession, he had the age, and we were, having like great conversation. And again, this was my first experience with the dating app. So I didn't really know what were like the hidden rules of the dating app. So I was just talking with this guy, and days goes by, and we're having good conversation, but we still haven't set up like a date, to meet in person. But again, I didn't know like how quickly people set this up. So I was like, no, we're just getting to know each other. And then I think like at 1 week of us texting, we finally had like a phone call. We only had like one phone call. And then you just kept texting, but this person was like very like unstable emotionally. Like he would just like disappear from time to time, and it's all the way to 2 weeks, and we still haven't met in person. So I was talking with my friend Debbie, and I was telling her what was going on. She was like, I think that's a red flag that he still hasn't, set up a date. And when she said that, we just started talking less and less. And what that encounter made me realize is that I shouldn't be focusing like on the superficial things, because yes, he had the career, he had the height, he had the age, he had the physical experience, well, the physical appearance, and so it seemed like he was like the perfect person, but emotionally he wasn't there. Even though he said he was a Christian, I don't know. There was just some things that weren't aligned, with what I would have thought he would have behaved. So that just put things into perspective. So that's when, the dating app is a little bit harsh because it almost feels like you're shopping for the perfect person. It's like, I don't like this, I don't like this one. I like his profile, but this little detail, I don't know if it's worth it. And you just keep like pretty much, removing all these potential people just based on very minor things, because you have options. You have all these notifications. You have, I've only been here for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and I wasn't rushing anything. So initially it was like this pursuit of the ideal person in some sense, but having the chance to pretty much talk with this ideal person and him lacking the basic thing, just put into perspective, maybe I don't have to put these people like in boxes. I can just be a little bit more flexible. So after that, I think that at that moment I was a little bit drained, because again, the dating apps can be harsh. Sometimes you feel like people don't treat you as like a human in the other side of the phone. Like I would start conversation with somebody and I would say the wrong thing and suddenly they are gone. That's it. They just, left the chat or I don't know what happens in the app. And I was like, okay. Or, they would say things that, it doesn't make you feel good. So initially I thought, I need a break. Like this is not working for me. And keep in mind that I was only like for 3 weeks at this point. But I was like, you know what?
Real quick question. I did want to ask, like,
Yeah.
what was something that someone said that was like, man, that was really harsh?
Well,
If you can remember.
Well, to be honest, I can't remember. I think like the harshest thing was when they would like just leave the chat. So I think that's just like one of the things like, wow. I mean, we were just talking. It's just like if we were having like this conversation in person, you just literally walk out on me. Like that's not okay. And then I would have like people that were I had a person that was like from Jacksonville. And I was like, but you don't even are in the same town and I feel like they were just not being truly honest. And I think that that's also something that it's just easier to say the right things through an app. So just being careful in that sense. But
Yeah. Okay. Is this where you're kind of ending your thing right now, or are you continuing?
I am continuing.
Go ahead. You're
But
good.
let me think because I think I lost what was I saying?
So you were kind of disillusioned with like thinking you
Yeah.
had all the options.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I need a break, but I was like, I paid for this upgrade for 30 days, so I might as well use the app for 30 days. So then I started to be more, how do I say this? More strict because initially I will make my selection if they had like the Christian label on it. And and sometimes they will put like the Christian label, but then when you see their Spotify list, it's like these are not Christian singers, and I know what they sing about. Like you're not gonna, I don't think you're truly Christian. Like something just doesn't add up. So they will have like those like cues, and I was okay. So this is not true Christian, but if they didn't have any of those flags, but they would say like they are Christian in the label, then that would have been enough for me to swipe that person. But after the different encounters with people that were just being rude, even with their Christian labels, I was like, you know what? I'm only gonna how do I say? I'm only gonna give my time to the people that are actually glorifying God in their profile. Like if they have nothing about their Christian life in their bio, if there's nothing like referencing God, I'm not gonna waste my time. And that's what I did. I literally started going through all the profiles that I already knew they swipe. I don't know which direction is it, right?
Swiping right is good. Swiping left is bad.
Okay. So since I had the upgrade version, I could see all the people that have already swiped right. So I was just going down through that huge list, and I was just like swiping left. I guess it would be swiping left to everybody that didn't have God in their bio. So that left me with no options. Literally, I went through, and I think I had like 100 and something people that had already like swipe right. So I was just going through all of them. But when I just was eliminating everybody that didn't have God in their bio in some way, I was left with nothing based on my filters. So then the app says like, are you willing to be flexible? And that's when it stretched, I was like, okay, I'm willing to be flexible with the height. It doesn't have to be 5'8" or above. I'm going to be flexible with the age. 1 year is not too bad. 2 years is okay. And that's when I expand my range that suddenly Devante was there. And yeah, so I think that will be the end of my segment here.
I love that part because like there's a lot of things that happen in that journey. There is the realization like, oh wait, even the person that meets everything physically and like status wise, career wise, even though they have all of those things, they aren't necessarily emotionally there or spiritually there. And then there's the realization that, oh, well, and this is something that a lot of like either baby Christians or like people who haven't figured out how to discern things, or maybe people who are not they don't have mentors or they're not disciples of an older person, that they don't realize too that just because a person puts on the label of Christian doesn't mean that they're someone you can really engage with as far as being together in a relationship wise as a Christian. Coming over back to my end. So as I was going and navigating the dating profiles, I didn't mention what apps I was on. I was on a lot more than Shally. I was on Hinge, Bumble, Facebook dating, Tinder. There were some other ones that I tried, but they seemed dumb, so I didn't even give them the time or attention. But Bumble, Facebook dating, and Hinge were my bread and butter. Especially narrowing it down, specifically Bumble and Facebook dating is where I probably got 92% of my matches and conversations from. So I forget if I did or I didn't pay for things. I know at a certain point I definitely did, because I also had to I think I had to like shut down that entire credit line or that entire card that was getting charged because I was paying for something at a certain point. But when it came to Bumble, though, which is where I found Shally. So as I swiped, I pretty much had similar thoughts with Shally, where I'm like, I just want to see that this person cares about some type of God in some way. And as long as that was there, boom. So, okay, God, Catholic, okay, sure. Spiritual, okay, sure. And what I ended up finding was that there were actually, so the people that I met, girl wise, match wise, I was actually really surprised at the goodness and the quality of them, because when it came to, and this is later on in each of our segments, but when it came to actually going out on dates with them, because I set up dates with all the girls that I matched with, contrary to like the type of guy Shally describes, which was someone that would be on for weeks and weeks, I'm like, I am spending absolutely as little time as possible in this online, the dating app, purely just texting through that thing. I'm not spending more than a couple of days, because I've been catfished before many times in my life, at least a solid 4 or 5 times I've been catfished. You know what I'm saying? Hit them with a I've been catfished, and it sucks. It's a waste of time. Usually that involves staying up late nights and getting some type of emotionally involved. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to waste my time. So I made sure to have a video call with girls before our date would take place. So me and Shally, we had our video call, and I made it a point to go somewhere that was plenty public. So as I'm navigating these apps, I am looking for Christian and When I come across Shally's profile, her profile was very minimalistic. I mean, I'm like, huh, what the heck was this girl thinking? Some of these.
I mean, it had the information you needed to know.
I knew that she had a dog, but it was like a picture of her with the dog at a beach somewhere, but it was also like kind of from a distance.
And that wasn't my dog.
And it wasn't her dog, I later found out, because when I met her, I expected the dog to be somewhere in the apartment, but the dog didn't exist here in Florida. It does exist, just not here in Florida. There was a picture of her like on the couch playing with her hair. Honestly, if it wasn't for that picture, I probably wouldn't have entertained too much more, because some of the other ones, another one was like her like cuddling up with the dog. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. You have a relationship with your dog, but I don't get a sense of what you look like. The other one was her standing in a distance, so I didn't know what she looked like. This was the only picture that I could see clearly. Okay, this is her face. This is her hair. And so I matched on her because
But let me clarify. The pictures, were well thought in the sense of, it gives you some information. Like you had my straight face. So again, you can see all my features. That's the one that you're referring. It had the one that had my dog because I'm a dog person. So I expect you to also, like animals. And then the one that were for like very far, it was at the beach because I like to be outdoors and I like the beach. Like, those were good pictures.
2/3 of the pictures I would say were very poor communication.
Oh gosh.
But she had enough God represented in her information to where I was like, you know what? She likes God. Let me see what this is about. And so as I'm going and I'm talking to these different girls, I'm setting up dates. Actually, the date that I had with Shally was supposed to be a date that occurred originally shortly after. It was supposed to fall within the sequence of dates that I had where I had like 2 weeks, but it ended up having to get moved because she was traveling. And so by the time I actually went on the date with her, she was at the tail end of the dates. So she was the second to last or maybe third to last date that I went on. And I was shocked when we actually went on a date because she was about an hour and a half late.
What? It wasn't that much time.
No?
Maybe 30 minutes.
No.
45 minutes top.
No. At the very least, an hour.
I don't think so.
And just a spoiler alert, this is a trend that does continue. She has not gotten much better with time. She's gotten better. Not much better, though.
There was flexibility. I think there's time that there's flexibility.
So she was late by an hour. I'm just sitting in the car, hanging out in the parking lot. And we do end up. Oh, so I guess I should kind of talk about how I actually went about having the conversations.
But I think let's stop there. That way I can go why I ended up choosing that transition.
Okay.
So I think that God was guarding my heart in some way because even though I spoke with multiple people, I only actually met one person in person. And it was actually in like a friend status already because I was like, I don't think that we're compatible. And he even agreed. He was like, yeah, I think you're right. But since we already had a date set apart, we were like, let's just still meet, as friends. And that's what I did. So I met this only one person. So I only had like one in-person encounter. But even though I spoke with all these other people, I never truly went on a date. And as I was mentioning, I was giving it just like a 30-day trial. And when I was swiping my extended, filters, I think it was already like 28 days. So I was pretty much almost calling it like quits for the month because my plan was a month and then have a break because I think it does stress you a lot. So when I was like swiping that night, I think it was like maybe the 28th night. I had like 2 more days of my trial, and that's when I saw Devante's profile. So what caught my attention about Devante's profile, again, it was his bio. Like he had like God all over it. I could tell that some of the pictures maybe were from church events. So I just was just staring at his profile, and I'm like, okay, he's 5'7". He's my same height. That's okay. Yeah, like that's not a big deal. And then I saw his age, and he was like one year less than me. I was like 27, and I was like, okay, that still can work out. And I was just like thinking, like, should I just go for it? And I was just looking at his profile, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And I just like swipe. And I think that at that moment we started talking. Like I think that when I did the swipe, it was already a match. and then we started talking. And so yeah, I think that's what I wanted to add.
Okay, good. That's good context. And I will say that that does take a lot of humility to step outside the standards like that, man. Because a lot of girls are super hard on that whole thing of gotta be taller than me, maybe gotta be a little bit older, but not too much older. So kudos to you. So as I was going, and the way that I navigated my conversations with people on the apps was I would start with a goofy question, and it was something about a frog. Like if you saw a frog, would you kill it? Would you just remove it? Would you help it back to where it was going, or would you like do nothing? And I would send this to every girl that I matched with, and there were some that had good responses, and then from there, that's I would go and set up a date afterwards very quickly. I would quickly move from, hey, is this like, here's this question. They would answer it. Usually they'd be like confused by it, and then I would explain it. And then we would proceed to set it up within probably 5 to 7 messages. And I would also stipulate, hey, I need to have either a phone call with you or a video chat. In Shally's case, we had a video chat. So we had the video chat, and we ended up going on our date I think it was about a month later after we actually matched, because we matched in March
No,
or so.
I think it was maybe
Yeah.
3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
Our first date was May something, and then but we matched on the app by like April something. There was
I think
some
it started at the end of March.
Yeah, the end of March. So there was some good time in between. And it was actually very so building up to my date with Shally. Like I said, I had gone on dates with a couple of girls already, and I had my experience where one of them looked like a certain thing, and then when we saw each other in person, I'm like, oh, snap, that was you from like 3 years ago. That is not you right now. That's all I'm going to say about that. I ended the date with, thanks. It was good to meet you. Thanks for coming out. There was another date that I went on that was a really good date. I mean, it went really well. Very cool girl. And I told her I was actually interested in setting up another date with her. And we had talked about doing that, but she was very busy as a nurse. And so I would text her. She wouldn't respond. I now know, as a man, that type of response is not interested enough. Guys, if you go on a date with someone and they don't respond with time efficiency, they might be interested in you. They might be busy, but at the very least, they're not interested enough to respond to you within a decent time frame. And then another date I went on, she was like fully all about it. She was like into me. We stayed up, had a long conversation, and we actually went. I had this habit where I would set up boundaries. There were boundaries that would be set up, and we haven't touched on it much because your limited experience as far as meeting people in person. But for me, I knew that I had come from the secular world, and so boundaries-wise, attraction-wise, things could get out of hand. And so I would always let the girls know, in addition to stipulating a phone call or a video call, I would also talk about, hey, if we're going to go on this date, here's my boundaries. And, there were simple things. Things like, some of them are simple, like no sex on the first date or before marriage. Excuse me. And then some of them were a little bit more strict, like instead of sitting next to me, I want you to sit across from me. Because I didn't even want to activate that touch thing. Also, like, what else? I forget. There were a couple of other ones, but being in a public space and not being alone was another one. So these were communicated, and I think that this played a major role in making each of my dates feel safer. And so this one date that I went on was going really well. We hung out for a long time, and it got to a point where I decided this is going well. I think things are going to continue with this girl. I'll push the boundary a little bit. And this was a mistake because I then realized after pushing that boundary, as far as allowing us to sit closer to each other, being with her alone at night where nobody else was around, and even getting into some of the physical touch aspect, basically I had broken every one of my boundaries. And even though this was something that I didn't, we didn't let it get to the ultimate place of where it could have gone, it was something I realized that if I allow boundaries to be broken like this just while in the courting phase, then I'm going to be allowing boundaries to be broken at every place where it's convenient and where it's nice for me. And so we left the date both very hot and heavy, but I did end up telling that person, hey, this, they were apologetic about it. And I wanted to really let them know, hey, this isn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong or bad. If anything, it's on me because I set the boundaries. I should have reinforced them, but, I'm going to have to do something else because I didn't maintain that with you. Like, it's already been sullied. So by the time I got to the date with Shally, I had that experience behind me. And now I was really doubled and tripled down on that boundary set. And even so much so that I decided, like, okay, when I meet her, I'm going to make it a point. One, we're going to have like some type of mini Bible study. The boundaries will be enforced very strongly. And I'm going to communicate like, hey, I'm fully aware of what's going on right now. And like, this is where the stop is. And this is where we are okay to keep going. Once we get to the stop, like, that's it. So boundaries wise, that was how that developed for me before Shally and I actually got onto our date. I don't know if you had any words you wanted to say about boundaries that you had, or that how things developed for you throughout the process, or maybe like how boundaries were previous to your dating experience and how it evolved once those experiences ended.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, my dating time was very limited. I only went out with this one person, but was already in friend status. So I haven't truly thought about a list of boundaries in the same, because I think that I haven't learned from experience, because those things is learning from experience, what things put you like in a difficult position. So I didn't have like a set of a list of boundaries in the same way that you did. I think that my biggest boundary, and I think that I said it to you before we met each other in person for that first date. It was like, I don't believe in sex before marriage. Like, for me, that was the important thing that I needed you to know, that I don't believe in sex before marriage. So you better, be in the same page as me, because if you came here with the expectation of having sex before marriage, you're with the wrong person. So for me, that was like the biggest boundary. But I appreciate it when you set the list, like when we were coordinating that first date. He set me a list of the boundaries that it would make it better for him. So he wanted me to know in advance that he would appreciate if I also abide by these boundaries. So that way we can both have like a good experience. And I was like, wow, this person, first, that shows emotional maturity, because you have set things apart to help you succeed in something. So that way you don't set yourself to fail. So I appreciate that. I feel like he's respectful when he send those boundaries.
Yeah. So, and this is like one of kind of the hacks that I tell guys, fellas, doggone, before you go on a date, like make a boundaries list and be like, hey, this is the rules that we're going to play by. One, like I said, it makes the girl feel safer. Two, as you see, it shows her that you have some type of self awareness and emotional maturity. And three, it is a step of you taking leadership of that relationship before you guys have even invested anything so much as the gas to drive to the location. You're already leading the relationship. So feel fully confident of sending a boundaries list. I think I had somewhere between 3 to 5 things on my list. So yeah. So going now on to
Oh wait, I wanted to add something in this section on how I ended up going into a date with you
okay.
because we as I mentioned, I spoke with a lot of people, but I knew that I didn't see us like a truly match. So I wanted just to talk a little bit briefly before we go to the date part. So when I started talking with Devante, I was actually talking with two other guys. And then one of the guys, it was so boring. Oh gosh. The conversation was just so dull. And I'm like, I don't even know if you have interest. Like, come on, guy. So, and then the other one, it was okay, but I was truly pushing some other um preferences that I had. So I was truly, because I wasn't truly attractive to this person, but I was trying to convince myself, it will grow on me. He has all these other traits. I was like giving it a chance. And then, I started talking with Devante. So one of the things that I like about Devante was that right away, the first thing that he said to me was a compliment. That makes you feel good. He was like, "Oh, I like your name. Like, where does it come from, or what does it mean?" Something like that. But he was like, "Yeah, you have such a great name." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." So that was like a different opening way of the conversation. And then he has an interesting name himself, Devante, that is spelled very differently. So we started talking about that. Then everything was just so smooth. We went from that to talking about our families, and then he was kind of funny as well, so he was making me laugh. So in just those first minutes, hour of that first conversation, I really feel good about Devante. Like he was making me laugh. Everything felt so natural. Like we were not just talking about the same things that people just talk about when you're starting to meet each other that almost look like very structured, very robotic. Things were just very natural. So that's something that I appreciate about him. And as he mentioned, when we started talking, I was getting ready to go to Puerto Rico to visit my family. So even though he wanted like to meet right away, I was like, I think you didn't have to wait like for a week because I think that I was out for a full week. And so we were talking for a few days, then that week. And then something that almost threw me off about Devante, it was just how freaking he would say hot dog. And I'm Hispanic, so there's some certain things in English that for me doesn't make sense. I'm like, why would he say hot dog that much? Like I don't understand this guy. And that was the only thing that was like, man, I just don't know why he says that so frequent. And then it's like, is that the age difference? Like, is that the 1 year there? Like, I don't know if I can keep up. So that was the only thing. But after I came back from Puerto Rico, we definitely said that time when we set up the video call, I was not expecting it because again, having Spanish as my first language, I was like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you later. But it means I'll text you later. I didn't truly mean I was gonna talk to you in a call later. And he was like, oh, that's like a great idea. When do you want to set up this phone call? And I'm like, a phone call? Like I'm not ready for that yet. But he was so excited, so I didn't want to crush him. I was like, oh yeah, right after work when I finished, my day in the hospital. So, but yeah, but I didn't. I thought it was gonna be because that's what you say, right? I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
It can be a text too. It's not literally. No, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, 100%. That's what a lot of people mean. But for me, I'm like, okay, bet. Talk to you later.
You took an advantage there. So yeah, so he waited for me to get out of the hospital, and we did the video call, and he was like, "Wow, you're so beautiful! Like you truly look like your picture." I was like, "Wow, thank you." So yeah, and then we set up the date.
um, Do you care to tell them about the comment that you ended up hearing me make, or
You want me to say it?
it's up to you if you're comfortable with it?
So
Get ready, y'all. There's something coming. Y'all ain't ready for it. Here we go.
Okay, so I don't know what happened when we did the video call. We were in two platforms at the same time. I don't know what happened, if it was when we did the video call in Bumble, there was a problem with the audio or the video. I don't know if you remember what it was, that we ended up calling each other in WhatsApp. But somehow we still had the audio. I don't know how that happened. So the thing is that when we finished talking, then we hung out in WhatsApp. But the Bumble call was still connected.
Here it comes.
And then, so when I noticed that he's still on the phone, I hear him talking to his brother about me. And I was like, what should I do? Like, obviously, I'm curious to see what he has to say, but I also want to respect his privacy. Like, I want him to have, our privacy. But while I was figuring out what to do, I hear him say, I can't remember exactly the exact voice. So if you remember, you can go ahead.
So I was telling my brother, man, this girl right here, she's really pretty. Like, she's got awesome hair. She's got an interesting name. And her eyebrows are a little bushy, but
He didn't say bushy, he said freaky.
Oh, yeah. I said they're a little freaky.
Yeah. So, yeah, because, I have a lot of hair, including my very dark brows.
And she was on and she heard that.
Yeah. And I was like, fair. my brows are, very, I don't know how to say it. They're there. They're big. They're there. So, but that's okay, because he did say that I was beautiful multiple times within that same conversation with his brother. Where I was like, you know what? This is just I'm just going to hang up this. So, yeah. And I think that I told you about it. Was it my first day or second? I can't remember, but I know that
I think it was the second date you mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't want you to feel like, I was like eavesdropping or anything. But yeah, but it was just so quick. I was like, I don't know what to do. But I ended up hanging up because I want to respect your privacy. Like, you're entitled to your thought, and that's okay.
So you guys, yeah, we. She still decided to show up for the date even after I said that.
Give him a chance.
Oh man. And so I think this kind of brings us to the apex of the this entire episode now, which is actually going on the date and how it was for us. So the first date that we went on was a date to a park, and this park was a beautiful park. It was something that one of my people suggested to me, and they had springs, kayaking, canoeing. I think they had like a little restaurant like around there.
I don't think that your people suggested it. I suggested it.
Did you suggest it?
Yeah, because initially we were going to go to this coffee shop that then I learned that he has taken his 20 plus dates to the same place. So he wanted me to go to the same place that he already had all these other encounters. But I didn't know that at that time. So initially we were going to go to this coffee shop. But then as we were talking, we noticed that we both were very out of shape in the sense that we were lacking physical activity. So then we were trying to change it to something that had some more like physical activity in it.
Right.
And that's when I suggested to go to the spring because I just love that place. And we could, swim, do the kayak, we could do the walking. And that's when we decided.
So we ended up agreeing on that, and we agreed for a time of, I think it was about 9 or 10 a.m. I think it was 9 a.m. And she shows up at like 9:50 or 10:15 a.m. So after that, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna chill, listen to some music, and play on my phone a little bit. And so we do meet up, we go on the date and whatnot, and we're swimming. While we're swimming, she like kicks me in the face or something like that. At this point, I'm like, okay, that's strike number 2.
I didn't kick you. Yeah.
You
I
got
mean,
one more
was that-
time.
That's when we were racing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We were racing in the water,
Have my eyes closed.
uh, and I paid for the portion where we were kayaking. And then before we did all that, though, we did do the Bible study that I had mentioned to her, and we talked about the idea of being equally yoked. And I was bringing up verses to kind of challenge a common Christian narrative and whatnot. And so we went through that, and I think she enjoyed it a little bit. So after that right there, like I said, we went kayaking, we went swimming, and then we moved locations from where we were to a place that we could get some food at. And at the time, this was a spot that a buddy of mine liked to go to all the time. So we went to Chipotle, and you guys, I must say, she doesn't even like Mexican food that much. She ate Chipotle with me.
Yep. It is good. It's just, yeah, it's not my biggest preference. But
So there were so many signs of like her attraction and like her wanting things to work, because if you look at it, I had insulted her eyebrows and she still showed up. I was challenging typical Christian belief with the Bible study, and she continued through it. And I took her to a restaurant that she didn't even like the type of food they served, and she still joined in with it, and she paid for that portion of it too. So that just goes to show, like, when a girl likes you, she will make certain allowances that maybe for a person that they don't have as much stock in or hope in with that person, that they wouldn't allow otherwise. As long as you have the things that matter to her still in place, which apparently, according to her, I was more attractive in person than I was in my photos.
I told him that when I was walking. First, we were matching that day. We both have like a wine colored top and black pants. But when I saw him, I was like, I don't think I told you like at that moment. But I was like, oh, he's actually attractive, because his picture didn't make any justice at all. So yeah.
I'll take it. And that's kind of crazy too, because I thought my pictures was on point, yo. No cap.
Well,
But so some things that I did also check on during our date was like, okay, some like things that stood out when we were doing the study. I was checking for like, is she keeping up with it? How is she responding to it? Okay, cool. She's like, I know some people say they're Christian, but when it comes to study, they want to spend as little time as they can in the Bible. So that was something I checked for too. And she was very engaged. And then when it actually came to, we were talking about family and experiences and whatnot, and there were definitely some things that stood out to me. She had a good relationship with her father. There was a conversation of body count, and I was shocked to learn what I learned, that she was truly true to the Christian standard when it came to sexual promiscuity. And so that impressed me a lot. Gained a lot of respect in my eyes, and yeah, they were definitely some green flags for me. So when it comes to my portion of our dates, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, I was impressed with her swimming, although a little ticked off that she hit me. It was
sorry.
it was fun natured. We were swimming around plenty, getting physically active as we intended to do. She impressed me because she always had snacks with her. Little did I know that's just a common thing that she does. She takes snacks everywhere she goes. And yeah, I thought by the end of the date, we arrived together at 10:15. And by the end of the date, it was what, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
Like 5, 6.
Yeah.
It was like an 8-hour date.
It was a full day of dates. And I mean, that's a full working shift. And she gave me basically her whole Saturday. And I left it thinking, man, that was such a good date. It was fun. It was varied. And like we contributed equally to it. So I was excited for the second one.
Yeah, definitely. When you started with the Bible study, for me that was very impressive because that tells me who you are as a Christian and where are your values. But specifically, the topic that you were discussing that was unequal yoke, and again, coming from a relationship where we were not equal, for me it was very important that coming to this new relationship we were not unequal. So just you bringing that up on your own, it really meant a lot that we were in the same page in that end. And yeah, so just going through the Bible with you, just learning more about you. We have like long conversation. Yeah, I thought it was a good day. The time flew. We did a little bit of everything. It was just very easy. Like nothing felt like forced. So yeah, you even sang to me in the car. So I thought like, wow, this guy, he just goes for it. So
Yeah. And yeah, that covers everything from where we were at in life to the end of our first date, folks. And man, there's a whole nother portion that comes after our first date. But that might be something that we cover on the next stream that we do together. This is a 30 days of streaming after all. So we're going to have her back on. We're going to be covering more details because I do think that there's value in the age of the 2020s that people were able to go online. A doctor and an electrician were able to go online from their busy work, heavily involved in their churches. They were able to navigate the dating world, and they were able to end it into marriage. So we'll be coming back on. I'll be having Shally share from the point of our second date up to when I eventually proposed. That'll be an interesting piece there because that will get into a lot of the things that we encountered from declaring it to be something more serious, to navigating dating, to trying to integrate our lives together, to some issues we had with each other, how we handled these issues, and how my mentality changed to deciding when was the time to actually propose to her. So I think that's going to be a really good piece, you guys. I'm excited to get on with her and do it. But is there anything, Shally, you'd like to say before we close out this episode?
yeah, if you're thinking about going to dating apps, I would highly encourage. It's just another way to meet people. Just allow yourself to take breaks and to recognize when it's becoming like a lot for you. Just be as honest as possible. You want this person to like you from who you are, not so much about what you think they want to hear. And yeah, from the Christian perspective, it's all about being equally yoked. You don't want to be with somebody that is not at the same level as you in regards of your same values. And yeah, so enjoy your singlehood. Is that a word? Singlehood?
Yeah.
Enjoy your singlehood is still a good stage in life where you can um, grow yourself, grow your relationship with God. But if you feel like the next step is dating, yeah, go ahead because it clearly works.
Yeah. And we're one couple. We have a couple of other friends who started their relationship from dating apps. Maybe we'll be able to get them on the show later on in the month to be able to cover their story too.
Oh yeah, my friend Debbie, she's actually getting married to
Yeah.
the guy that she met in April. So yeah. And my other friend that also encouraged me to try it, they're still together. So going solid there.
Hey. Shout outs to relationships from dating apps. All right, you guys. So I want to thank y'all so much for tuning in. I hope this has provided value, insight, and some things to consider for you. Whether you're a woman watching this, trying to figure out why can't you find a decent guy, hey, maybe your standards are just realistically too high, and you got to be honest about the fact that somebody that's got 4 out of the 5 qualities, if that 5th quality is immensely important to your mental, emotional health, your spiritual health, maybe you need to prioritize that one thing over the 4 things, because that's exactly what Shelly did here. She compromised on 2 to 3 of those things, but that 4th or 5th thing, I had it in spades, and it worked out. And for my guys, like I said, set the boundaries, fellas. Like I said, when you come, be ready to lead that interaction, that relationship with maturity. Hold the person you're on a date with to a standard. Don't just acquiesce to however she lets things they flow. You set the standard, and then you hold the interaction to that standard. And finally, know when to pull the trigger, as I'll get into next episode. So you guys, I have been your host, Devontae Colonel. This has been my lovely wife,
Shalimar.
and we bid you adieu on this beautiful Saturday. Hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you next time on the Inspired Challenge podcast. Take care.
Bye.
And cue music. Peace out, y'all.